is supporting Racine Rents Housing Initiative with ArcGIS Hub. We'll be hearing from Megan Dudzik from the City of Racine and Kyle Wikstrom from ProWest. Kyle serves as solution architect at ProWest, where he helps local government organizations evaluate, configure, and deploy solutions through ESRI's ArcGIS platform. He has extensive experience with ArcGIS Online and ArcGIS Hub and was instrumental in ProWest receiving designation as an ESRI specialty partner for both products. Kyle stays informed of emerging location technologies and designs and solutions that are based on common workflow patterns that address critical business needs. Megan is a project manager at the City of Racine. So I'll turn it over to Megan and Kyle.
All right, I'll share the presentation here.
Okay, well, thanks Ryan for that intro. In this session, I'll be talking about how we handled our Racine Rents initiative and how we came to choose Esri's Hub as our central point for information pertaining to the specific initiative. It's pretty extensive initiative here. You can go to the next slide. Well, I'm Megan Dudzik. I'm the interim MIS director for the City of Racine. I've been with local government for about 10 years, and I've held a variety of different roles and positions within our own department here at the City of Racine. I started out here fresh from college, working on our help desk, and that really provided me the insight into the departments as far as what systems they use, the technologies they use, and how they work their processes. I then kind of progressed into managing and prioritizing some of our help desk initiatives, kind of better align what different departments are doing so that we could better support them. From there, I became involved in our CityWorks administration. We utilize a lot of CityWorks throughout different departments, and it's one of our biggest used apps throughout the city. But that allowed me to get more of a handle on internal processes, bringing old processes into CityWorks, that we had a general data store. We were better able to share that data interdepartmentally and get a better handle on their workflows and their day-to-day operations. In 2015, I started working with GIS. It came down from one of our other departments after some staff changeover, and they decided that it might be a better fit to be in IT. And they said, hey, do you know anything about GIS? Do you want to be involved in that? And I said, hey, sure. What's GIS? So it was a good learning experience for me, and it's such a powerful and robust program, and it really it's fun to watch it grow throughout the city and throughout the different departments. But from there, I progressed more into a project management role, and I've been handling and coordinating some of the upper level projects as technology is more becoming ingrained in our different departments. The need for IT involvement becomes greater in assisting implementing those projects, gathering the data and making sure they're in centralized locations and that we can pull back some analytics and just make sure that information is disseminated and distributed properly between departments. And that's been really insightful and really fun to be able to work at such an interdepartmental level. So that's a little bit of my background.
Great. Megan, the best response I got to what does GIS mean? I was sitting in a meeting room and somebody said, get it surveyed. I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, I'm Kyle Wikstrom. I won't offer too much. Ryan, I apologize. We'll get you a smaller bio the next time. You've had to read that. You've had to read that twice this conference. So yeah, I'm Kyle. I've been with ProWest for about 6 years. Before that, I had gotten my master's at the University of Minnesota, had started, and then also had some education out in Washington, D.C. and University of North Dakota. My experience and background is largely in state and local government and some different types of levels of government as well.
So a little bit of background about the City of Racine. We do have a population of over 78,000. That does make us the 5th largest municipality in Wisconsin. We sit right on the lake, pretty much mapped between Chicago and Milwaukee. That in itself is a great location for me. I know it's great to be able to get between those two cities fairly easily. In 2019, we were designated as a smart city by the Smart Cities Council. We had won one of their readiness workshops, and that was a really exciting part of what I've seen in Racine. Just the focus shifting to being more data driven, enabling those lines of communication between departments and staff, and breaking down those silos that local government is kind of known for. With the administration wanting to be more accessible and more available to constituents and residents through technology, a focus on increasing sustainability and just enhancing general overall quality of life through means of technology has been very insightful and exciting so far throughout the city. So it's interesting on what initiatives are being picked up throughout the different departments and how we're relating those into smart cities. Racine is the smallest city to get such a designation in Northern America, so that is an exciting feat as well. We are known as the Bell City, or the Bell City of the Lakes, and that, I don't know if anybody knows, but that kind of stems back to the Racine Bells, and that was one of the first women's professional baseball teams, and they went on to win the first women's professional baseball league. So that's a little tidbit that I always think is fun. But I think we are best known overall for our zoo and our first-class beaches. We have great beaches here at Racine. So if you're in the area, check out our downtown and take a drive over to North Beach and Zoo Beach and check it out. So we've had GIS a long time here at the city. It was implemented over 20 years ago through our DPW and engineering department specifically. They use GIS in pretty much everything that they do. They work with vendors who also work in GIS. They update our systems still to this day. So GIS has always been very central to the City of Racine, and it has turned into the central point for many of our systems, such as CityWorks, that we use very interdepartmentally. Again, it started in our engineering department. I think it shifted around to a couple different administrators up there in those departments, and eventually the staff retired, and the DPW commissioners kind of decided that, well, you know, GIS is pretty IT centric, so maybe that workload can go down to IT. And they're like, well, we don't 100% know what the GIS technicians up here did in engineering, so but I think you should be able to handle it. So, you know, we kind of jumped in IT, and my coworker Cherno, he has been key in implementing some of these large systems throughout the years, and he was been a key role in getting some of these things going. So I know he is kind of my cornerstone when I have someone to go to. I reach out to him, and now we have ProWest helping us out too, and they've been a godsend for me to help get things out. But the GIS use is pretty user friendly, and as we have new staff in, a lot of them seem to either already know GIS or pick that up pretty easily. So we have quite a few other active departments creating layers and applications and utilizing the Esri services. Besides our Public Works and Engineering department, and that includes our Health department, they've done some COVID dashboards. They release applications depending on what kind of programs they're working with. Our Water Lab, they do a lot of GIS work internally for what they do as far as managing their water levels and environmental factors. They utilize a lot of that data as well. Lately, though, our city development and our neighborhood services staff has really stepped up to the plate. They're now managing a couple of their own layers. They have done some pretty extensive story mapping and survey 311s. They've really been getting into the nitty gritty of GIS and their applications, and that's been exciting to see. And then, of course, our police and fire departments. Our fire department has really been active in GIS and in some of their internal applications. In our police department, they're a big proponent for their crime maps. And I think that's common among their enterprises, but it's fun to see them managing their own items within our environment. So we come to our RENTS initiative. And I think when we had some big administration changes here at the city, it really, they really started asking questions and noticing certain things about the city. So one of the things that came to light that was kind of a long-standing problem was the deferred maintenance of our residential rental properties in Racine. We do have a pretty heavy rental population. And I think there was some frustration between lack of communication, not only between departments, but between the city and the residents. And I know aldermen would come in with complaints, and it would appear to them like they were complaining about certain properties over and over. And there was slow resolutions. It didn't seem like anything was moving. And then when we went back and evaluated that data, we found that we were expending an exuberant amount of city resources, kind of going back and forth between the same properties, between like our code enforcement officers and our health inspectors, our building inspectors, fire departments and police departments. We kind of realized we were all spending a significant amount of time at some of these properties, and we needed a better way to sit down, gather the data, maybe figure out a way to come up with some quicker responses, and figure some of that stuff out. So along came our RENTS initiative, and we released an ordinance early in 2019. RENTS stands for Racine Rental Empowerment and Neighborhood Tenant Services. So we passed this ordinance. It has 6 pretty hefty components involved in it. And I believe it was modeled after a couple of communities. So we're definitely not the first to implement such an initiative. It's a very interdepartmental initiative, kind of brought from the top of the administration down to the staff. And those initiatives and components are our property registration for residential and commercial properties. We have some protections against retaliation and escrow deposit programs. So if we find that landlords aren't really keeping up with their house in a timely manner, or there's an extensive amount of habitability violations where it makes really rough living conditions for a renter, the renter is able to get permission, depending on the circumstances, to deposit their rent into an escrow account that landlord can use then to alleviate and mitigate some of those violations. Another component is the proactive rental inspection districts, an actual clear definition of chronic nuisance properties. So it's not just a buzzword, and that there's actually some enforceable measures that the city can do for problematic properties. And then we also have a bank registration of properties pending foreclosures. And through this, we partnered with a vendor to help us get through that initiative, and that vendor is ProChamp. So some pretty hefty lifts for this ordinance. It's very interdepartmental, make no mistake. It's not just an IT initiative, but we have a group of probably 10 departments that are meeting weekly about how to get through some of these initiatives. There has been a lot of responsibility that other departments that have had to take on to kind of take ownership of these processes. It has been a very hefty pull from a lot of different people. So I guess we get to why GIS and why the hub. Well, I mean, we have in ELA with Esri, we like to make use of Esri tools whenever we're able to do so. And I know the hub offers kind of a one-stop shop where we'd be able to disseminate some of this information on each of these different components because staff have questions, they need a reference point. The residents have questions, they need a reference point. I know I personally reference the hub, managing these different components very, very frequently. So it's good to have a place to go to kind of get your head straight on which initiative you're talking about, what the main goal of the initiative is, who's taking ownership of this initiative, your main points of contact, and things to that nature. Another reason we liked the hub idea was that it was scalable. It's very user-friendly once it's stood up. It's fairly easy to edit. I don't have a web developer on staff. I wasn't really looking to do another website, and Hub is a little bit different. It's a little more point and click. It's a little bit easier to maintain, in my opinion, and we can add in and integrate our other Esri applications, maps, surveys, and things to that nature as we grow out some of these initiatives.
All right. Megan, would you like to introduce the site or would you like me to go into the demo?
You can go ahead and go into the demo. I think that's fine.
All right. And you should see the site. All right. So ArcGIS Hub is an Esri product designed to help bring together the various types of content that you might want to distribute out to your users. And those users may be the general public, certain groups or certain personas, or internal staff. And in this case, the City of Racine had a lot of narrative content with links to other resources that they wanted to provide a one-stop shop for. And ArcGIS Hub has been the way for them to bring that content together and to provide that narrative, as well as other types of resource information, including contact information. There's a handful of maps within the Hub site that a user can look at to look up different types of zones and to look up property. It gives them the one-stop destination to find surveys that they may take to submit information to the correct departments and the correct people. And as we go through this Hub site, as Megan mentioned, nearly everything about the site itself is point and click configurations. Nothing about the site was custom. It's all available with an ArcGIS Online subscription. So as we go through the site, you'll notice that there's a lot of care put into describing the narrative. Part of effectively communicating a story is the words that you use and the context that you put around your story or your idea. So what we did was we focused on those 6 key pillars, and we organized the site in a way that focuses on those 6 pillars, those 6 components of the RENTS initiative. One of those first initiatives being content for landlords and commercial owners, and making sure that when they read or go through this section, they understand that this section is for them. It can provide some additional context about what it is they're supposed to be doing. And then they can access other types of content, whether it be access to another system to register a property, getting the e-forms or the paper forms for submitting additional information. And here there is a frequently asked question document. There's also, and here I do want to point out this registration satisfaction survey. And this is something that was set up by the staff at the city after learning to use and configure Survey 123. This is something that was configured by their staff and then added to the site. So here they're soliciting information from these particular survey takers, and that's providing feedback to the city that they can use to measure progress.
Yeah,
Megan,
this survey in particular was created by some staff in our mayor's office who they've never used Esri products or Survey 123 before. So, but they went ahead and they split this up fairly quickly and got it linked into the hub on their own fairly quickly. So I think as an IT person, that's pretty impressive. I like not having to do it, and I enjoy other people being able to enjoy some of those point and clicks and being a little bit self-sufficient.
Megan, I wanted to ask, was it the staff or was it you who put that that link in there?
I did not do it. They did it themselves.
For them, that's great. That was not one that I configured.
No, it wasn't.
As we go through the rest of the page, you can see there's other content for the other type that cover the other types of components for the RENTS initiative. And there's context about those different components and for the personas who are meant to use them. And now as you're looking through this site, you might be asking, well, how did all this content get in here? We took advantage of Hub's text widget a lot. With the text widget, you can actually, one thing that was really a lot of fun to work with for this particular hub was the use of SVG code to create these different types of graphics. Using an open source editor, we created some graphics, extracted that configuration and inserted those into those text widgets. So those actually aren't images or pings. That's SVG rendered every time the browser is opened. As we go a little further, you can see we got other information, a personal message from the mayor, making sure that users know that, hey, this site is something that we have created and we're generating, and it's helping to put a face on the initiative and promote use and participation from the different people throughout the city who are part of this initiative. There was, oh, I missed one, but I have the link open. So we were talking about different mapping applications being included. One of the most important maps as part of this initiative is these neighborhood stabilization and enhancement districts. And this is a layer that's being maintained by the city, and people within the city can look up just the simple location of where is this district or some of the other districts that may occur, not occur, but exist. And they can look up to see, is my property or is a property at which I'm residing within the district boundaries. Megan, is there anything you want to speak to about this specific map?
This specific map took a lot of effort to create. It was primarily created by our neighborhood services division, and also Cherno from our office. They spent a lot of time coming up with metrics, analyzing data. They wanted to make sure that when we were proposing residential rental inspection districts, that we were able to highlight the hot spots where we had a lot of violations, and they went through very extensively our lists of violations through public safety, their calls for service. They took violations from our code enforcement, our health inspections, our building departments, and they went through each kind of violation we take, and they determined what kinds were more habitability centric so that they could higher prioritize areas where they tend to have more habitability issues, such as, no heat running at a residence, or no water running at a residence, or just dangerous housing environment. So we wanted to make sure that we had a standard, that we weren't targeting anything. There was no internal biases set. So we had basically an equation set, data evaluated, and they came up with this district, and it was approved through our council, so that we could implement that component of our RENTS initiative. But there was a lot of work that went into this layer interdepartmentally, and taking it through the council.
So yeah, a lot of effort went into creating this layer. It provides way more value than just a simple, am I in the zone or out of the zone answer. It's something that's being actively used by the staff to look up areas of concern. All right, so I will go back to, I will launch the presentation again. We can keep working through that. And we will put, right as the presentation's over, we will put the URL to that Hub initiative site in the chat window. I would do it while I would talk, but you would watch me stumble through doing that. Yeah, so a little bit about how the Hub was used. It was, I also tend to demonstrate the different applications before I get to their slides. I should have looked at these slides first before jumping into the demo. But in terms of the data content being consumed and provided through that Hub site, we have those neighborhood stabilization enhancement districts primarily, and then information can make its way from the general public or the tenants and landlords to the city staff through that Hub site as well. So there's that two-way engagement. Already demoed. All right. All right, so Megan, I'm going to give it back to you, and I will put I'll put the link to the Hub site right here in the chat window.
Oh, I think Ryan already covered that for you there, Kyle. So I see it already there in the chat window.
Ryan is doing me a lot of solids. He had to read my big long bio. He's putting the link in there for me. Thanks, Ryan.
So as far as implementation goes, the implementation of the Hub itself, to me, was the easiest part of the overall initiative. I kind of threw it at Kyle and I said, we met with the team. We went over the ordinance and kind of what each component was about, what contact information we wanted. And we kind of just threw it at him, and I think he returned it back just a couple of days later. and we've taken over editing it ever since internally. I know some of our mayor's office staff have been updating key dates, adding in buttons, as you saw before, certain context if it has to be changed. So they've been maintaining that site for, basically on our behalf. I haven't had to do a lot of work in there myself since kind of handing the reins over. So the implementation of the Hub site was very, very easy and straightforward. But the overall initiative is we have about 10 key departments working on all of these different components, and a lot of them are involved in multiple components of this ordinance. As far as user feedback goes, it's been very positive, at least from the side of the website itself. People have been accessing it with Hub and ArcGIS Online products. You can kind of see some statistics as far as usage on those, and this is one. You can see that there was a spike in the usage. We did have a deadline for registering your rental and commercial properties, and you can see that use of the site really spiked within that time period. People accessing it, getting to the online intake form, getting information about who to call and what they're supposed to do from that site. And ever since that point, we average about 51 views a day. So I think that's pretty impressive. I like to see the statistics on something. I like to make sure that it's being used. And so that's kind of a fun piece for me. But I do think it met the goal of providing that one-stop shop on this initiative that we were overall looking for in a website and a web page. As with every project implementation, there's always lessons learned. Hindsight is always a little bit 20/20. And when we went back and we looked at some of our things, one piece we missed is we were really trying to be intentional about getting user feedback for this process. And we had configured especially for a property registration portion, because it was a newly created intake application. We wanted to get user feedback on how they thought it went. Was it easy to use? Did they have problems? Was there not enough information? That kind of thing. And our mayor's office created a survey 123, and we put it in the confirmation email you get when you register and pay for your property. And the survey link was not very visible in the confirmation email, and I think it was missed by a lot of people, and we didn't get really the feedback we were looking for, even though we were really intentional and proactive about getting that survey set. And so I think, having somebody else far away from your project kind of proofing your work is always a good lessons learned and a good thing to remember when you're implementing new stuff and you're very heavily involved in it. Just getting those extra fresh set of eyes on what you're doing is always probably the most helpful thing you can do. But as far as operational lessons learned, it's pretty standard. These are very new items. There's nothing in here that we've done before. So that means we had to figure out who to get involved, who and what department needs to be involved, what departments actually need to be involved, and getting all those people centered on a way that we can all proceed without stepping on each other's toes or throwing all the work at one department or one individual. Establishing clear ownership. There's more work to be done with these initiatives, but I think everybody sees the light at the end of the tunnel. They see the benefit to these programs, and the departments have really been working well together to accomplish those. And so we've been able to clearly determine that local government silos can be broken. We can all work together and come together as a team, and that's really been cool to see with this project.
One element, Megan, from a technical standpoint, has been that working with, and not just the City of Racine, but presentation is important as well. The images and the words that we use are really important. They help convey ideas, and you need to use representations or presentation skills that create a sensible message that can be understood by everyone. So that's why the narrative provided through Hub and putting special focus on that was really unique to this project. There was a lot of additional content to explain those ordinances. So I think that's something that we all kind of learned together as well.
Yeah, definitely. And then moving forward, this is the first time that we've utilized Hub through the RENTS initiative, but it's definitely something that I personally have in the back of my mind as other departments talk about new initiatives or new programs. And it's something that I kind of nudge people at this point in time, just because we have seen how easy it is to maintain, how easy it is to stand up, and you don't have to have a lot of background GIS knowledge to be able to do so. So I know there's been a couple of our departments that have visited a couple of the Hub workshops out there. So that's cool to see. And we've been utilizing a lot more of Survey 123 overall through a couple of different department areas now. So again, you don't need to be a mapper to be able to use these tools. You can kind of just use them in your day-to-day to collect the feedback and make things accessible and